Greetings and salutations! Welcome back to another edition of the DVD Shelf Foreign Flix, the show that would rather high-five a good movie than cave in the chest of a bad one. Every movie I feature is one that I enjoy, however, not all films are created equal, which is why I will use this scale to rate them. Today I have a double feature for you as I will be reviewing two Norwegian horror comedies. That's right, it's time to discuss Dead Snow and Dead Snow Red vs. Dead. Horror comedies featuring zombies are nothing new, especially from other countries. New Zealand's Brain Dead, released in the US as Dead Alive, garnered a cult following for its fun campiness, humor, and the overabundance of blood and gore. And then there was the British smash hit Shaun of the Dead, that felt like a love letter to the Romero classics while also paving its own way and containing some big laughs. There are even lesser known films such as Undead from Australia. Amidst all of these, Norway thought they'd get in on the fun with 2009's Dead Snow. The film follows a group of medical student friends as they head to a secluded cabin in the snowy mountains to have some fun. While in the cabin, an old man stumbles upon them, telling them a tale of the greedy Nazis that used to terrorize the area and the fate that befell them. Soon after, the group discovers a stash of gold and jewelry in the cabin.
Fortune and glory, kid.
Their fun soon turns to horror as the long-dead Nazis, who have come back as zombies drawn to the treasure, begin to terrorize the group and pick them off one by one. The surviving friends must use the resources they have available to fight for survival against the zombified Nazi soldiers and escape the mountain. This film, seemingly influenced by the ultra-popular Nazi zombies mode from Call of Duty World at War, unfortunately did nothing overly special with the concept. Sure, it was fun and there was plenty of bloody, gory deaths and zombie kills, but ultimately it was all just too familiar. The story and situations play out about how you'd expect in such films, with most of the characters feeling like they are cut and paste from any number of horror movies. The take charge attractive guy, the nerdy movie reference guy, the horny girl, the lewd sexual guy. You get my point. There are a few surprises in the proceedings until the last act, which finally felt like the director had found his footing and went all out with the craziness, ditching the overly predictable and typical horror movie plot we'd experienced thus far, and upping the quality of the zombie killing, but by then, it was too late. This film didn't deliver enough laughs, nor did it provide enough scary moments. The last part of the film helped make up for it, but as a whole, it was missing anything to make it stand out as much as it could have. I mean, come on, it has Nazi zombies. Immediately it has a lot going for it. If the rest of the film was as fun as the last act, it would have been a better movie, but as it stands, the stereotypical proceedings and predictability of the plot hold it back from its full potential. So, I give it a 3. Give it a rinse sometime and maybe you'll like it enough to buy it like I did. As far as the release is concerned, this has an overabundance of extra content, bordering on Criterion Collection level, though it isn't all of high quality. There's your standard trailers, and then there's also a pretty good making of that mainly contains behind the scenes preparation and execution for a variety of scenes and stunts. There's also a much longer behind the scenes special that chronicles the troubled outside shoot, though at around 48 minutes it is much longer than it needs to be. There's also a special about the sound editing, another that follows the cast and director on their strenuous travels to make it to the Sundance Film Festival, a short visual effects special, one on the makeup effects, and a brief selection of outtakes. Five years after the release of Dead Snow, the writer and director returned with a direct sequel titled Dead Snow Red vs. Dead. Now, in order to talk about this film, I'm going to have to get very spoilery about the events of the first one. The film picks up immediately where we left off, with the one-armed lone survivor Martin being attacked by zombies, including the leader of the zombie Nazis, Herzog. He manages to narrowly escape, taking off Herzog's arm in the process. However, he ends up crashing his car soon after. As the zombie horde begins to wander away from the mountains, Martin awakes in the hospital, discovering he is blamed for the murder of his friends, and that the doctors mistakenly attached Herzog's arm to Martin, thinking it was his. Martin soon discovers he has a bit of an idle hand situation, as the arm has a mind of its own, in addition to increased strength and the ability to raise the dead and turn them into his zombie followers. Desperate for help, Martin turns to an American group that call themselves the Zombie Squad. And together, this group, along with a museum employee Martin meets along the way, work to stop the Nazi zombies once and for all by using a zombie army of their own consisting of World War II Russian soldiers that were executed by Herzog when he was still alive. Right away, from the synopsis, it is abundantly apparent how different this film is from the first one. It ups the scale and the ridiculousness. Whereas the first one feels fairly standard and typical in story and execution, this one goes for broke and takes no prisoners. The film doesn't just push boundaries for what is typical and considered acceptable to do, it drives over the boundary with a blood-covered tank, laughing all the way. Families sharing a meal, elderly couples, the handicapped, children, and moms pushing strollers. All of them are casualties of the zombie attack. This film feels like he was trying to be as over-the-top and ridiculous as possible, with the deaths and gore in the first film feeling like a sample of what was to come in this one. I also appreciated the departure from horror movie character stereotypes. We now have the emo museum employee who is alluded to as being gay. And as a small bit of trivia, he is played by the same actor that played the aforementioned lewd sexual guy in the first film. There's also the hot girl that is obsessed with Star Wars.
Replicas of the binoculars that Han and Chewie used on the planet Hoth.
The nerdy zombie expert who is desperate to prove zombies actually exist. And the reanimated zombie sidekick that behaves similarly to a dog, just to name a few. Wholly original? Not really, but what is? The fact is that they don't feel like cookie-cutter horror movie characters, and that helped make this feel even more unique.
Okay.
One interesting thing about this film is that they filmed it simultaneously in English and Norwegian. And I'm not talking about some form of overdubbing. In one version, all of the actors, aside from the German Nazis, spoke English while filming their scenes.
So he was on his way to Talvik that night when he and his men were butchered down in Øksfjord.
And in the other version, all of the actors, aside from the Nazis and the Americans, speak Norwegian while filming their scenes.
Han var på vei. Han var på vei til Talvik den kvelden han og hans menn ble slakta i Øksfjord.
And the best part is both versions maintain the same quality of acting. Now, I am all about subtitled movies, but for those of you who stumbled upon this review and hate reading subtitles, this was made for you. The US release even makes the English language version the default version of the film that is played. This decision automatically makes the movie that much more accessible to the American audience, which is great because this is definitely the better of the two films.
What the fuck's the matter with this country?
In the end, this sequel surpassed the original in almost every way, except for horror. The first one tried to be equal parts horror, comedy, and splatterfest, only it wasn't all that scary and had too few laughs. This one ditches the horror aspects, focusing more on the humor and upping the gore. No longer are they trying to create an homage to the classic horror comedies. Instead, they're forging their own path, creating something different than anything you've seen before, and I think it works wonderfully. The jokes might not always land, and the premise and many of the events are just utterly ridiculous, but this is one hell of a fun ride of a zombie movie. So, I give it a 4. Definitely buy it eventually for an over-the-top and unapologetic, gory zom-com. Now, as far as the release is concerned, sadly, the special features are not as prominent. Whereas the first film provided an overabundance of behind-the-scenes footage, giving us more than we probably wanted, this one gives us none. Well, aside from a 1.5-minute visual effects special that quickly shows us before, during, and after the creation of some visual effects shots. Past that, we get a trailer, a digital comic book, the Norwegian language version, and the short film Armen that follows a man who loses an arm only to have it weirdly grow back and have a mind of its own. Well, that'll do it for this episode. For the DVD Shelf 4 and Flix, this is Tavarin reminding you that intestines are incredibly versatile.
Hey, David Rose here. Hope you enjoyed that video because there are plenty more where that came from. And we'd really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button and clicked on the notifications icon so you can get all of our latest content. Which reminds me, I should probably go make some.